Who are you going to staff your government with if you're going to have the same problem that everybody has, which once the dog catches the car, then what? You've got all of these institutions which have selected for economists who don't tell the truth, who've selected for sociologists who are friendly to the institutions and hostile to our people. What do we do? We're in this totally bizarre situation. I don't think the institutions have faced up to just how dire our situation
No, they have not.
is. When I go outside, for the most part, the physical world is still humming along, but everywhere else you can see the signs that somehow the superstructure that undergirds the simple physical reality has really been fraying. Am I wrong about that?
No, I agree with you, and in many ways, if you're just living life not plugged into all of the institutional decay, then you just go out and the sun's shining and the birds are chirping, and like you said, the physical world is still more or less sound, barring the occasional heat wave and unseasonal weather pattern.
So the way I see it, effectively, what you have is a world of institutions, and you have the wrong people in the institutions. In fact, what's happened is somehow that the institutions were built in an era where things were growing rapidly. The growth pattern changed a heck of a long time ago, almost 50 years ago. And so for what they've done is these institutions have selected for people who can continue to tell stories about growth and to kind of play games to keep the illusion that everything is still humming along as if it was the 50s and 60s. But that hasn't been true for a long time. How far off am I?
Well, that's what the numbers say, and I'm a numbers guy, where if you look at the economy of the 70s, you had a certain level of buying power among the middle class and certain split in terms of the gains from the economy among different parts of society. And then the lines started to diverge starting in the 70s, and now they're incredibly divergent, where you have middle class incomes essentially unchanged during that time, and then people at the very top level absorbing more and more of the gains in the winner take all economy. But we all pretend like it's still the 70s, and you can see the disconnect in the lived experience of most Americans and most of the country, where they're starting to catch on that things have changed. And I mean, it's dark. It's dark.
Well, it's incredibly dark, and it's worth laughing about, I think, for that reason, because if we don't have a sense of humor about it, we're not going to be able to easily do the work. So I think Whistling Past the Graveyard and gallows humor, definitely there's a place for that.
Well, I naturally, I suppose people have said to me that I have a very dystopian point of view, but I tend to present it in a positive, upbeat manner.
I think you're trying to get us through a bottleneck that you and I both know is coming. Yeah. And that, in essence, I mean, one of the things I'm very concerned about with you is that I don't want you to promise the world that you know how to do this. I want you just to say that I'm the best person to handle whatever's coming next, because nobody knows what to do.
Well, certainly I would never claim omniscience or that I'm going to get everything right. I mean, I make mistakes all the time. Just ask my wife. She'd be like, hey, you screwed up just the other day. But you and I were talking before the camera started rolling that I think it's going to be a very dark time. And the goal has to be to try and survive the darkness and not have it produce existential level harm. And I believe that I can assist in that regard, but I certainly would never say that like I have all the answers or that if I'm president, everything's going to work right. Because the fact is, there are two things I've thought about. It's like there's the way the president makes you feel.
Right.
And then there's actually solving problems on the ground. And right now, our experience of the presidency tends to be around the feeling. Like if Donald Trump does something irrational, it really does not affect my day-to-day existence, except for the fact that I see all the news reports and I'm like, oh, that guy, what's he doing? And the same is true in reverse. Like if Barack Obama did something decent and human, it made me feel good. Didn't necessarily, like change my commute or anything.
Sure.
And so there's the way it makes us feel, which I believe I can assist with just about immediately for anyone who, wants someone who seems solutions oriented,
right? Positive, data friendly.
Yeah, data friendly and genuinely wants to just try and make people's lives better. I think that would make people feel better. But then there's the reality of trying to solve the problems from the perch at the top of the government.
Yeah.
And that's a very different process. I mean, I'm locked in on this idea of a freedom dividend in part because I think it's the most dramatically positive thing we could do that we could actually effectuate in real life that would improve people's lives that we can actually get done.
Now, I am both positive and negative about it, as you probably remember. What my belief is that we have two claims as Americans. We have a claim as a contributor to the economy, and we have a claim as a soul because we happen to live here, and as a soul, we have certain rights as a human being, just as a member of society. The weaker of the two is as a soul, but that claim still exists. And in some sense, what you're calling the freedom dividend or universal basic income speaks to the idea that there are these two competing claims. And you don't want to get rid of the incentive structure that allows people to, take a dream and turn it into something.
I love the dream. I love work. I love entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
I
And
love people doing great stuff.
So I think that there's a theory that there's sort of a series of economic theories that haven't actually been developed. And I think one of the things that's really important to me is that we retake the institutions, because what we've done is we've selected for people who've used very simplistic models that have had a huge effect on transferring wealth, but have not actually mirrored our problems. We've selected for the people who really don't tell the truth. And I'm very worried let's talk about your first term in office, which is going to happen. Who are
2021.
Who are you?
Inauguration day. It's going to be a blast. You're going to be there. Pia's going to be there. Yang Gang's going to be there. We're going to have a giant party.
Wait a second. Getting ahead of us. Who are you going to staff your government with if you're going to have the same problem that everybody has, which once the dog catches the car, then what? You've got all of these institutions which have selected for economists who don't tell the truth, who've selected for sociologists who are friendly to the institutions and hostile to our people. What do we do?
My team is going to be a blend of different people with different experience sets from different industries, even different ideologies. And I think you need some people who are DC insiders who have relationships on Capitol Hill if you really want to get things done, because you're talking about possibly the most institutionalized town in our society. And so if you get there and just like, I'm going to staff it with outsiders, then no one's going to get anything done.
This was Trump's problem.
Yeah, like you're not going to get anything done. You're just going to be fighting with the system all the time. That they're going to be like these antibodies that treat you like this hostile agent, and then they're going to just make your life miserable at every turn. I mean, that's just the way organizations work. It's the way cultures work. And so you need to have a blend of people that are like, look, hey, I get it. I'm a new figure and you're concerned. And one of my principles is that I don't fault people for the incentives that have formed them.
Mm-hmm.
And by this, what I mean is like, if you show up in DC and there's someone who's been part of the fabric of DC for 20 plus years, and they are someone who've been through administrations right and left, just sort of survived the whole thing, and their goal is to just keep that function going and make sure they get to retirement and whatnot. Like, you can't blame that person for being part of that system, because that's what their incentives have been for years and years. And so what you don't want to do is you don't want to get there and be like, I'm going to like turn everything upside down. I'm going to like attack everyone.
Well, the immune system will just actually, the macrophages will descend on you. And
and then you'll never get anything done.
You'll never get anything done. So that was one of the answers that I was dying to hear, which is I'm going to have to work with the infrastructure that's already there. But then there's the second part of it, which is that I actually need to see some people permanently ejected, called out, chastised, who have been this class of people misadvising our government throughout the 80s, 90s, early part of this century.
Well, and that's the dark part for all of us, that we sense that there's really limited accountability in DC. Like, you can give bad advice and screw something up, and you keep your job. Your think tank's still there. Like no one goes back and says, hey, your white paper, turns out it was completely mistaken. Like that. Like that's not the way that town works, or that many government institutions work.